You are listening to the Life, Hope, and Leadership podcast with Nick Chybrzynski, a transparent, honest, and encouraging podcast to equip you through real-life experiences.
What's up, beautiful people? Thank you for jumping in on Life, Hope, Leadership with me, Nick Chybrzynski. Don't worry about that last name. I haven't figured it out either, but I'm glad you're listening. I hope these episodes are helping you. I hope you're being inspired, encouraged, and challenged to kick butt and take names in your walk with God, in your life, in your hope, and the way you're walking out your leadership. I believe everybody has it. Problem is not everybody knows how to use it. So leadership is important. So I hope that that will encourage you. And today I'm real excited. I actually have a friend with me. This is our first interview podcast, and he has a lot of leadership in his life. And so I thought it was exciting to kind of hit life, hit hope, and leadership with him. And that being said, if you're enjoying these, please make sure you hit the like, the follow, subscribe, wherever you're seeing these. Share it with somebody. Send it to 5 people. Let them know they can spell million, M-I-L-L-I-O-N, and send it my way. Okay, that was a joke. But that being said, please, everybody, welcome my friend Matt, as he is here to talk and to talk life, hope, and leadership. What's up, Matt?
A whole lot. Busy. I kind of feel like I'm in a dream. It's funny to hear the intro music and be on the other side of the microphone and not listening in my car.
Come on, man, you're here.
Has headphones on. It's pretty cool. But
you've been one of my greatest encouragements. There's a handful of people that really message me, follow up, and check in with me on these podcasts, and you've been one of those people since the beginning. And so it's honestly an honor and a privilege to have you. I'm glad we could carve out some time and make it happen in this crazy season of our lives. So yeah, thank you. It's cool. You're on the other side, baby. Now you'll hear yourself in the car. You'll probably do what I do and turn it off.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I think it's important that people kind of get a pulse on who you are and why. And I'm sure in just a little bit they'll understand exactly why you're here on this episode. But you've experienced a lot lately, and I think it'd be cool to just kind of wrap a nutshell on it.
Sure. A little bit of my background. Where do I start? Let's start how old I am now. I'm 24 now. I have been married for coming up on a couple years here in February.
Let's go.
So that's exciting. There's been a lot that has happened in the last 4 or 5 years of my life, and I've grown a lot. We were actually just at a marriage life group last Monday, and one of my closest friends' wives told me, Matt, I think you've grown a lot in the last few years.
Wow.
And that was eye-opening to me, because I feel like I have been, but I spend a lot of time learning, researching, grabbing lunch with people that are a couple steps ahead of me so that I can learn some things the easy way.
I love that.
And I don't have to learn them the hard way. And I try to gather as much information from other people with other experiences as I can so that I can be a couple steps ahead. And I graduated high school 2017. I went to community college for a couple years, Butler County Community College. I transferred with an associate's in business administration to Slippery Rock University and gathered a bachelor's in finance. I started working as a financial advisor, building my own practice while I was actually still in school, because I knew for sure that this is what I wanted to do with my life, and we'll probably get into that as we continue to talk as well. But I graduated college, bought a house, and got investment licensed to do wealth management all in the same month. But like I said, I had a pretty good idea on where I wanted to go, and I would seek people out that were a couple steps ahead of me that did well, that I could look up to gather advice from. So I got what I would consider to be a fairly quick start in life. I got married at 21.
Yeah.
And now my main focus moving forward is gathering increase in my 3 identities that I keep inside of my Bible on a note card, because I used to have them out of order, and now I can't get them out of order because I have to look at them almost every day.
Yeah.
One being...
So this is in order?
Yes.
Okay.
One being that I'm a Christian, 2 being that I'm a husband, and 3 being a financial advisor. And I probably had those flip-flopped at the back half of my college experience, and I had a borderline breakdown in my living room shortly after I got married, finding my identity and what was important to me, and ended up trying to find some type of peace in this whole thing. And I think that the reason I didn't have peace is because I had those things flip-flopped. Working from the top down inside of that order helped me to stay focused on what was really important and be better inside of number 2 and 3. Whenever I thought that being number 2 and 3 first would help move me forwards, I let God prepare the way, and he set the table for the rest of those things.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that listen to this that may not be Christians, and they immediately, the moment they hear Christian and they hear putting things in biblical order, they may be turned off. How would you share that with somebody, saying, hey, listen, don't tune out, because there's still, I truly believe that no matter where you are in your walk with God, or faith system or belief system or lack thereof, we can learn from each other. So what would you have to say about that?
There's nothing new under the sun, right?
Yeah.
And whether you believe in the Bible or whether you're a Christian or religious in any capacity, if you actually do the things inside of the book, it's a great guideline and keeps you inside of the guardrails for life.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it or not, if you just do the things inside of the book, I believe in put those things first, seeking first the kingdom, the rest will be set before you. And whether you believe in a God or anything, I believe that there's truth and there's power inside of that book for a basic guideline through life. And that's why I started at the beginning, and I want to read my whole way through them. A couple years into this whole thing, and I'm only at 2 Kings, because I study, I don't just read. But
so you said something, and I want to hit this because I think this is really important. Obviously those 3 identities, they do change.
Yeah.
They change. And I think it's so cool. The Bible says, I, the Lord, am the same yesterday, today, and forever. It is so nice that when everything changes, that first identity doesn't. And I think it's amazing how many Christians, how many people I know that they fear that. They fear that God doesn't love them, or they messed up, or God's done with them, or they think they took God off the throne or whatever. And I always tell people, especially being in ministry for 20 plus years, I've seen so many wayward children, grandchildren, that I have watched moms and dads, they would give their last breath to bring them and restore them to their identity. And so when you put God first, you're not only putting God first, you're actually putting the purest form of you first. And that's where you become your best. It's like you can't become your best unless you present yourself exactly who you are. So going to God first, you're like, hey, look, man, I'm the significant difference between the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, and the creator of all the things, and then us. And when you stand next to God, you get to go, wow, I'm allowed to be small. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a good, humbling experience to stand next to God. But you are going to have those identities change. So, son of God, child of God, God the Father first, and then husband, and then financial advisor. When you have kids, it'll go, see, this is where a lot of people mix it up. All of a sudden, they're like, God, kids, spouse. There might be people listening right now, especially because 50+% of homes are broken. So a lot of kids are stepkids, and it's hard for someone to marry somebody and then go, wait, you're allowed, biblically, you're supposed to be more important in the structure than my kids. And the meaning of that is not that your kids don't have value, but it's the same idea that I believe Dr. Mike might have mentioned at the men's retreat. And, you always take care of yourself first, and then that way you're safe and healthy, then you take care of your kids. So those identities will change. And then what if God pulls you away from financial consulting and advising?
Right.
And some people don't have that. So what I love about that kind of your transparency about having that kind of breakdown, Proverbs 19 says this, I don't know if you read this, better to be a poor man who's living a blameless life than a fool. And think about it. He's comparing the fool and the poor. So he's really saying someone who has everything, but they're foolish. So better to be poor and to have a good walk a blameless walk than to be a foolish man who has perverted lips. And I think a lot of times people think perverted just means like we talked about boobies, right? It's like, no, it's much. Perverted means to manipulate truth, to bend things from their original form, to manipulate a meaning or a context. You ready for the next verse?
Yeah.
It is not good for a man or woman to have passion for something, but not have knowledge of it, nor to be hasty, but yet still miss the target. A man's own folly will ruin his or her life, yet they'll blame and rage against the Lord because of it. And so it's saying, hey, I perverted this thing. I'm out of context. I've got the wrong identities in order. I don't like where I'm going with this. All of a sudden you show up and you're like, God, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And I love when you're saying, man, you know, I pick up mentorship everywhere. I pick up relationships. I sit with people. I ask questions. I learn. Why? Because it's not enough to have passion for something and to arrive. God forbid somebody give you the car of your dreams and you don't know how to drive it.
Yeah.
So what comes first, the passion for it or the wisdom and knowledge?
Right.
All right, go ahead.
No, that's good. I believe that there's so much importance in finding somebody that's a couple steps ahead of you and seeking advice. I was meeting just today, actually, with a couple folks that are business partners in a construction business, and they have about 8 employees, and they've been growing extremely fast, and I manage money for them. And we were in a review session, and they shared with me, Matt, I'm tired of being small. They said, we want to be big. We want to grow, and we want to grow this thing to 100 employees, and then the sky's the limit from there. We want to be big. And I asked them, why? Why do you want to be big? It's a lot of headaches, right? Why do you want to be big? And it took them a while to answer me. It's funny how exactly like you're talking about, there's passion inside of a lot of people to build something or grow something or start a family or build a house, but very seldom do people ask themselves why. And after that, they explained, hey, we would like to continue to grow because the people that we support and give jobs to feed their families with their paychecks. And that's exciting to me. They're providers. That's inside of their heart.
Yeah.
Sounds to me like they were created to be providers.
Yeah.
And I said, why is it important to you that you feed their families? And they didn't really have an answer. But there's something inside of them that was instilled or dispatched by something somewhere in some capacity that gives them purpose in life to do what they do. And that's what we're slowly unpacking. And it's interesting because I can use my practice as an outreach and a ministry oftentimes. Yeah, I love that. I plant that seed to revisit in the future. But I share that with you to say that these folks, they want something and they're growing and they're passionate about what they're growing, but they felt stuck and they didn't know what the next step was. And I said, who's a couple steps ahead of you that owns a construction business that has 25 employees, not just 10? And they rattled off a handful of names. I said, are you close with those guys? Yeah, we hang out on the weekends. So I said, have you ever asked them to take 45 minutes, grab lunch, buy their lunch, to pick their brain on all of the things that they learned the hard way so that you can learn the easy way? You're not going to jump just from 8 employees up to 150 employees tomorrow. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take time. So maybe you folks have the same problem that I do. Lack of patience might be a piece of it. But I said, I would challenge you to find somebody who's a couple steps ahead of you and just pick their brain. Nobody's going to say no to that. Yeah. If you reach out to someone in the perspective, I respect you, I appreciate everything that you've done, and I've been watching you and I look up to you, I want to pick your brain so that I can learn some things the easy way rather than the hard way. Would you spare 30 minutes of your time to pour into me so that I can learn? Who's going to say no to that?
Well, and I was just going to say, so what do you tell a person who did try that? Because, you know, there's a saying that, the Bible says that hope deferred makes the heart become sick. And so you think there might be someone listening who goes, man, I tried to get time with somebody. Now I'm going to be honest. You know, our church, any given Sunday between two campuses is anywhere from 250 to 400 people. I mean, I think last week there was about 300 people. Okay. Every single week someone says, hey, can I get with you? Can I spend some time with you? And like, I literally don't have any time right now. And because I've had things got put on my plate that I got to do right now. Sometimes you have to do what you need to do until you don't, right? And so I'm in the season where my time is like, I think I'm a week overdue on a podcast. I've just been running nonstop. Part of that's my fault. Part of that's the fault of just circumstances, whatever. But I know that there have been people in my own life, and I don't think of myself as anything. Honestly, I don't think of myself as much other than exactly what I need to be. But that being said, there are people that I look up to that I have been like, hey, can I just get some time with you? And I would tell you how I've responded to this, but I would love to hear from you at your age, 24 years old. What would you tell somebody who kind of feels like they got the door shut in their face? Because realistically, it's not it's like most people are going to receive that. But we kind of do live in a society that people want your investment, but they don't necessarily value your time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like everyone's like, there's this whole like, give me a mentor concept going around our society. And I believe when you pursue mentorship, I have a very staunch perspective on mentorship and how to get it. And so I'll back off the mic. Go ahead.
To me, that's number one. That's number one. That's what we just covered. That's why I'm in that order.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to be the one to figure it out. Right?
Yeah.
I can do what I need to do. God can give me a shovel, but I'm going to be the one to dig the hole. And I believe that God gives you the opportunity, but there might be a piece of you that needs to seek it out as well and search for it on your own. So the reason that I shared that order is because I start from the top down. And if you get
he's over here cussing. I'm gonna have to put explicit.
If you get the door slammed in your face, from somebody that you look up to, that might be a sign that wasn't your person. Maybe there's somebody somewhere else that you were to seek mentorship from, and the reason you weren't connected with them is because they weren't your guy. I would take that as an opportunity to let God figure it out and set the table.
Yeah.
Again, reaching in that order. Lord, I'm lost. Lord, I want direction moving forward. I want you to make my path straight. God, I pray this almost every day. And my wife will tell you this, and the folks in Bible study will tell you this. I say almost every day, Lord, give me opportunity so that I can continue to move forward and make a difference for the kingdom.
I love that.
And if your life is tied to that mission statement and that prayer, God will make a way. I don't know how he'll make a way oftentimes, but I believe that he will. And if that door was slammed in your face, maybe that was a sign that wasn't the right opportunity. So Lord, give me the right opportunity to seek into it, because something I learned in Bible study a couple days ago, lady that I'm in study with brought up that a rule in her house, I think this is so cool. A rule in her house is to go to the throne before you go to the phone. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's interesting, because what do you do if you don't know something? I
go to the phone.
I Google it. Yeah. I'm going to Google it, man.
Yeah.
And a rule inside of her house is to go and seek the Lord in prayer, again, in that order, to go to the one that sits on the throne, that prepares the way moving forward, to seek guidance, counsel, and wisdom from him first before you seek answers from the world. I
just had somebody ask me a question this week, and I said, listen, I'm going to be honest. There's so much Pittsburgh happening around us. A couple Pittsburgh words. You can hear train horns. So I was saying, you know what? I cannot answer the question you just asked me, because I believe that you are trained beyond that question. I believe you are equipped beyond that question. And I think you're coming to me as a crutch to ask me something that you already know what you should do. You have enough in you. So I refuse to answer that. I will not help you with that. Now, I'll give a for instance on what looked like a closed door, but really it was just a frustration. I have a friend who is a very, very dear and very close friend to me. And And he's a very prominent figure. He's a public figure. He's a music person, and he's a musician, a singer. And so somebody asked me, hey, do you think that you could get him to do a session with us, with a group of people in my circle of leadership and pastoring and ministry? And so I was like, well, yeah, probably. And so I reached out to them and I said, hey, would you want to help us, because we want to do a session on music ministry? And he messaged me and said, well, I'll give you my worship pastor's phone number. And I was like, cool, yeah, I appreciate that, And some of the people that wanted to have that session, they were like, well, we'd really like to have him. And he's like, well, yeah, like I get it, but I've delegated that part of my ministry now. Now he's an artist in his own right. So he has his own music label, but we were talking about church and ministry, and being a gospel artist, or being a Christian music artist, or being in a band is different than the music ministry of a church. They're two different, they completely function in very different ways. And so I was a little bummed because we ended up not taking advantage of that opportunity, because it was like, well, So that being said, people come to me and they'll go, hey, I want to talk to you about marriage. And I'll go, well, yeah, but I would rather you talk to Rich and Stacy, or Jeff and Sonny, or some of our life group leaders. Hey, Pastor Nick, I want to talk to you. I'd like to get some mentor. I need a half hour with you about recovery. Well, we have a recovery meeting on Saturdays, and I would love for you to meet with my team. And so sometimes what looks like a slammed door is actually a detour. Mm-hmm. But our passion, right, without looking at it. And so we're such an easily offended society. And I think at your age, you really set the bar that I feel like you and I have a very parallel track. When I look at 24 of my life, I see a lot of me and you in a similar lane, different professions, but not different confessions, right? Like our confession was Christ, it was kingdom. It's funny enough, I worked for Intuit when I was your age. So I was in a financial world, and I was working with small businesses, and I would help small businesses get on the right, softwares and things. So similarities, but all that being said, my number one focus, my life goal, 21 to 27 years old, was I was sitting under divine mentorship. I cannot tell you in my young 20s how many marriages I got to learn from by going to marriage counseling after marriage counseling. My pastor would literally bring me in with the permission of the couple. Can I bring in one of my guys that's learning? And I just got to be a sponge and a fly on a wall in so many instances. I got to ride motorcycles, sit at Starbucks, go to Chili's, go to restaurants, travel the nation and the world to sit with divine people, oftentimes without any reason to be there except to serve, carry a bag, whatever, park the car if need to, and just learn. And I'm so grateful for those opportunities. But those are not the average opportunities that just come along, because you can't just give those opportunities to everybody.
Right.
And so you have to give them to somebody. And oftentimes people come to me, not to diss the process, but they don't want to submit to it. And I think something really special about what you're doing is, man, you have a marriage that's thriving. You have a business that's thriving. You have your own personal life is thriving. And I think there's something to be said about the process. And so what would you tell other 23, 24, 21, 22-year-olds? I mean, yeah, go get mentorship, right? But you and I just had a conversation a little bit ago about how many, probably in the thousands of people that have been like, hey, can I get some mentorship? Can I get some time with you? And I'd need binoculars to find some of those people. I'd probably need Google Maps to find some of those people, because they come and go. Some of them, I think you and I have talked, we talked about it today. Some people are for you, some are with you, some are against you. So some people will be with you forever, some will be for you forever, and some, they'll just come and go, and they'll be against you sometimes for no good reason. Of course, we all have our good reasons to turn people against us. We all suck in our worst moments. So that's the bottom line. But what would you tell a young 20s about getting out of the system? I mean, you really have broken the mold for an average 24-year-old who is not, here's what I love about you. You are not career driven. You are kingdom driven. So when I see people that are at your level, that are your age, they're so consumer or so career focused that they kind of don't have that other balance, and they're killing themselves. If you study Japan, they say that the population of Japan is depleting because and young men are dying in their 30s and 40s from heart attacks and stresses and aneurysms because they're working so hard towards their career. They're leaving everything else behind. No families, no dreams, no visions. They're literally working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours and killing themselves for a paycheck. So how do we help a younger generation go, hey, you got to step into the process?
I think that the process is...
He's putting his glasses on, man. It's getting gangster in here. Okay.
I think that the process is not driven through the process. I think the process is driven through the vision. I work out of Pittsburgh, and as I walk through Pittsburgh from my parking lot into the building that I work out of, I pass a sign every day. In anticipating this conversation, I took a picture of that sign.
Okay.
But the sign's for Kier Refinery. Using a 5-barrel, this is what it says on the sign. It's it's a blue sign. It's falling down. It's weathered. It's sideways. It's probably not going to be there for very much longer. But it says, using a 5-barrel still, Samuel M. Kier erected on this site about 1854 the first commercial refinery to produce illuminating oil from petroleum. He used crude oil from salt wells at Tarentum. That's it. That's all it says. And here's the picture of it. But as I walk past that sign every day, I think, who was that guy? Who was Sam? What did he do? What was important to him? What's left from him?
What's left from him?
That sign.
Wow.
Maybe there's probably a lot more than that. Who knows? I don't know the guy,
right.
But he made a pretty big difference. This is a big deal, enough to make a cast iron sign and put it in the middle of Pittsburgh. But nothing else is left from his refinery aside from that sign that's falling down, dilapidated, rusty. In 100 years, is that sign still going to be there? What's going to be left from Sam in his legacy?
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is, I don't know if it's necessarily just the process, but I think it's the vision. And to me, the vision is about what's going to be here the day that I die, so that I'll know that my life was worth it and it made a difference. And it's not a business. It's not about the sheer amount of wealth that was under my management the day that I died, or what my book of business was worth whenever I passed away, or how many shares that I own in the firm that I build, or how big my house was, or how nice my car was. Because I look at that sign. That sign speaks to me. Yeah. It really does. And I pass it every day. I look at that sign and I think those types of things are going to pass away. All the things that we work for inside of our careers are going to pass away, and my house is going to pass away. But the things that will not pass away to me are the fruits of our labor. The fruits being love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. If I can bear those fruits and I can drop those fruits, someone else can pick those fruits up, eat from it, be nourished by it, and maybe drop another piece of fruit for somebody else to eat off of. That lives on, and that can't rust. That can't be demolished. That can't be eaten by moths.
Right.
Those are the types of things that are going to live on. So to me, it's not about the process that promotes success. It's about the vision for the future and the passion that pushes that vision. Because if you're passionate about something in the future, that is what's going to pull you, not necessarily the work that pushes you into the future.
So why would you say, I watched so many friends growing up as I was just, granted, how God rescued me at 15 and then moving from here, going to Ohio, moving from Ohio, moving to Arizona, from Arizona to North Carolina, coming back here, planting a church. Like, most people never even leave their block. Yeah. I've probably, I think I've lived in 6 or 7 states. And so one of my greatest grievances is looking back and seeing how many people just never took the next step.
Yeah.
And I love that you said the process is driven by vision. I feel like that's one of the things that's being stolen from your generation and younger is vision of a great future. Like nobody talks. It's the craziest thing. I feel like when I was growing up, we talked about the great future. It was, you could be this, you could be that, you could do this, you could do that. When I remember it was like a pride to possibly be a fireman or to be a police officer or to be an astronaut or go to the military, and that the world was going to be great and that it was on the edge of our fingertips. And now it seems like it's like all everybody talks about is doom and destruction. And then obviously we forced a pandemic, and I have super opinionated views on the frustration of how that was lopsided. And we've screamed social distance, 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 distance. And even today I went into a place that said, we're just a reminder, social distancing is 6 feet. But it's the most insane thing. We still talk about social distancing. Nobody has ever released us psychologically in the subconscious, in the governmental systems. Nobody has ever said, reconvene, go have fun, engage one another, buy houses, build properties, build businesses, take the world by storm. John D. Rockefeller, I believe it was, who created the modern day public school system, said, I do not want to raise a society of thinkers. I want to raise a society of workers. And now, what is the saying you hear 1,000 times a week? Nobody wants to work. And I think a big part of that is because I used to love, well, I still do. I love working because I have vision. Mm-hmm. When I was 15, I got a job at a candy store. I got paid under the table. Holla, $5.25 an hour. Let's go. and I'm not even kidding. And I had the key to that place, bro. I was 15. Yeah. I opened that joint, and I sold candy all day long, and I watched TV, and I played music, and I learned how to wrap baskets. I learned how to box up candy. I learned how to, how they take ribbons and then they hit them with the edge of a scissors and it turns into a bow and a curl. Mm-hmm. I did that, bro. I figured that out 15 years old. And I got to count the register at the end of the night. I prepared deposits, 15. And then I would lock the building up and I would go on my way, walk my butt home. Yeah. Like there was a vision. What a pride, what a joy. And I'm thinking, well, I could own that. I could do this. So how do you help someone get out of that rut, man? Like, how do we give vision to a 21-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old who's been, social distance or overdriven by technology, the phone instead of the throne?
Mm-hmm. What are the pillars? Right?
Mm-hmm. Know God, find freedom, discover your purpose, make a difference.
I think it's about discovering purpose. I think that's the big one, but they go in that order too.
Right.
Yeah. What do you say all the time? I think what do you say? The hope of the world is found
in a healthy local church. Hope of the world's found in a healthy local church.
Yeah.
Not just a local church. There's a lot of crap found in.
That's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what I do in from a kingdom-minded perspective is I can't find value or encouragement to wake up in the morning and go do what I do every day just for the purpose of bringing home a paycheck or building a business or a career. It's got to be deeper than that.
When did you get the purpose? When did that strike? Like what hit your heart where you're like, yeah, dude, I want to do this? Or did that come through the process of going to school? Or like, when did that start?
I was questioning in college why I believe what I believe. And there was someone on my college campus that was giving out Bible tracts. And one of the Bible tracts that I read was, I believe, called What is Purple? Or something like that, about purple. And it talked about purpose and understanding your color. What God put inside of you and how you differ from the world and what your purpose is to continue to move forward, to make a difference, and how to lean on that to find passion, to wake up every day. Not that I was depressed or anything like that in any capacity, but unpacking my purpose and understanding my past was huge. Symbis, premarital counseling.
Love Symbis.
Was huge. Understanding my background, what makes me tick, understanding what turned me into the man that I am today and why I do what I do was huge as well. And understanding how I operate in a partnership with my wife rather than just the wife, but my wife, and taking ownership over my wife and our relationship as a partnership and a helper to help us accomplish a difference was also huge.
No, I love that, because that bothers me. I see a lot of the old ball and chain, that I got hitched. We just say these things that, like, man, that doesn't give you vision. Mm-hmm. That doesn't help you. Why would I want to be married to this old ball and chain, to an old man or the old woman, right?
That makes you look stupid.
I'm telling you.
If you say that, because you're the one that decided to marry her, right?
I'm telling you, bro.
That makes it look like you made a foolish decision.
Yeah, and I love that. I think finding your purpose, it's interesting. So let me ask this. At what age did you start to kind of discover the purpose to not so much your walk with God? Because sometimes there might be someone who's 60 years old and they're listening to this and going, wow, I got my career. I have had kids. I have grandkids. I have a wife. I have this. I'm missing God. So they may go, okay, wow, I want to make a decision to find Jesus. And if that's you, if you're listening, you can go to ghow.net/saved, ghow.net/saved, and it'll be in the notes for the episode. On Spotify. I don't know if the notes pop up everywhere, but I know they do on Spotify. But that's awesome. So for you already knew, hey, I want to go to college. Where did that purpose part? Because your kingdom purpose attaches you to what you said. I love what you were bringing up earlier, that, at the end of the day, are you just going to be a cast iron sign?
Right.
There's one of my most depressing things is to walk through a graveyard and to just go, how many people lived for the dash but left nothing behind?
Yeah.
And the principle that you're speaking of, always leaving something behind, is actually a biblical principle that you see with Boaz and with Ruth, and you see where the Jewish people, when they would harvest, they never picked up anything they dropped in mass quantity. Hey, if there's something left on the stem, if there's harvest that's left behind on the grains on the floor, leave it behind for those who are coming behind us. We have lost that.
Yeah.
We have lost this, I'm going to live my life for something greater than me. And when you find Jesus, the Bible says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He gives us the way to live. He gives us the truth about existence, and he gives us eternal life. So I'm like, man, I could follow you, bro, because you came from eternity. You came into time. You died, resurrected, and went back to eternity. I'm going to follow that guy.
Yeah.
So that being said, where did you wake up your purpose for, or where did you start to get the glimmer of your purpose with finances? Because obviously you went to school out of high school, kind of already ready to go. You know what I mean? How did that happen? And how do you help someone start to discover their gifted purposes at a younger age or wherever they are?
My mom was in banking and finance for about 25 years. She was the glue that really held my family together. Everybody loved my mom. She passed when I was 12 due to complications from a surgery, completely unexpected. Was designed to be a somewhat routine surgery and not a big deal, but ended up, like I said, to be complications, and it just blindsided my entire family. Obviously, being in banking, she managed all the finances inside of my dad's small business and inside of my family. And when she passed, we were just left with a mess as to where our money's at, what it's doing, and what it's for.
Wow.
And we hired an advisor to come in, organize everything, and I saw the impact that made on my family. And I said, okay, that's a career that I could see myself in.
That is so that's really touching to me. I didn't know that. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because I know that's a very sensitive, that's a rooted, losing. And I lost my mom 7 years ago, and, or 6 years ago. And it's crazy because one of the things my mom did for years as I was growing up, she was a jeweler. Mm-hmm. And so I have helped so many people, even in my trip to Israel.
Yeah,
I actually helped a couple.
Yep.
I have helped so many people find their wedding rings and their engagement rings because my mom taught me those things. And so that's really neat. I think it's neat to feel like I get to know a piece of your mom by watching you help. And I think it's really beautiful. What you just said has brought me, and this is a really good life and leadership for the home, making sure that the spouses understand everything as clear as possible in case one of them no longer is here.
Yeah,
because that
100%.
is guaranteed. Somebody's going to leave before the other.
Yeah.
And so my wife knows there's a list of things. If something were to happen to me, she literally has a list she goes down and pretty much she would be taken care of.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's amazing.
I saw how short life can be, and that was one of the things that kept me so busy. I carried, ironically enough, I don't have it with me today, but I carry a notebook with me almost every day. And I'll fill those notebooks full of notes from sermons, Bible studies, things that stick out to me, things that God does in my life. And I note all of those things down for the purpose of now I have a stack of volumes of everything that God's done in my life since I was 8 years old. I literally kept this since I was 8. And that stack of notebooks means more to me than anything in my life, as far as tangibles go. Because I write all that stuff down, not for myself to reflect back on, but for folks in the future to reflect back on, so that maybe somebody can pick up right where I left off and take all of the hours of trainings and studies and podcasts that I've listened to and pick up right where I left off and get a kickstart in life, discovering their purpose and learning all the things that I learned. And that to me is a very large piece of my legacy. They're in those notebooks, which sounds kind of silly in a way, but those notebooks are extremely, extremely important to me. But
I love that.
Note takers are history makers.
And I have a true story of when we launched the church. I had a friend, I have a friend, and I dearly love this person, but they were constantly frustrated with our launching process. And launching a church is very malleable, dude. It is moving. It is liquid. You know, it's like some would say there's a right way to do it, but they're in Pittsburgh, man, like there's not just one way. There's not one way to fry an egg, right? I mean, you can flip it, turn it, twist it, whatever you want to do. So I everything we were doing constantly just rubbed them the wrong way. And so I said, hey, can you meet me? And they met me somewhere, and I showed up, and I had a pillowcase full of journals, all my journals from my teenage years up till 31 when we started the church. Mm-hmm. And I sat them on the table at the restaurant, and I said, where's your journals? And I'm not saying this to be cocky or arrogant. I really value what you just said. I said, where's your journals? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, you constantly want to fight the system. You constantly want to buck the process. You're always frustrated. You're always telling me what we should do. Where's your journals? And he goes, I don't have journals. I said, well, let me explain something to you. My journals are full of moments and mentorship and sermons and butt whoopings that one of my mentors would call me, say, meet me at Chili's in 20 minutes. And I knew I was getting my butt handed to me. I knew I was getting my butt handed to me. And guess what I did the whole time? I was getting someone else's foot up my butt. I was taking notes.
Yeah.
Got to change this. Got to fix that. Got to get better. Got to do this. Got to do that. Do this. Do this. If you're not mentorable, you're you're menaceable. You're going to be a menace in your own life, to your own heart. And so sadly, I love that person. And I said, I think you're going to be better off at an established place. It's evident that the fluctuations that we experience in the building stage is not meant for your type of either your mindset or where you are in life. And that's okay. But what you just said is so dope. And it leads me to actually why I started this podcast. I did this podcast because I'm going to leave the earth one day. I wrote a book because I'm going to leave the earth. And I have many more books. I think I have like 30 books started. And I'm trying to figure out how to get them all out, because if you leave this, what do I always tell you? Let's squeeze the orange.
Yeah.
I love orange juice. It's like 100% pulp free, not from concentrate. Let's go Tropicana all day. Someone say amen. So here's the reality. I want to squeeze the orange. I do not want to get to heaven and God goes, man, there was so much more in you to get out. But we've become a get in society. We have not become a pour out society.
Yeah.
And so I think what you nailed on the head is I want to be in finance to pour out. But most people go to finance to get big.
Yeah.
I want to get bigger. Why? And I love the why, man.
Why?
The why purifies the drive.
Yeah. Why? I connect to a purpose statement. This is something I've been working with a business coach for a couple months, and I had a mission statement that I thought was interesting. He calls it a burn statement. What's burning inside of you that wants to wake up every day and hit it? And I created something. He said, that's not good enough. You got to go deeper. I created something else. Said, you got to go deeper. This has to light a fire inside of you every morning whenever you wake up. And I read this, not just read it, but I read it out loud in my kitchen every morning whenever I'm doing after I do my morning devotional. And it says, I was created to serve God and continue my mother's legacy of kindness. My mission is to take every opportunity to build the kingdom and show everyone that they're valuable. And I take that with me throughout the day, and that's how I start my day right off the bat, because I believe that you have the choice to use your past to propel you into the future or hold you back. And I use my past circumstances and everything that happened with my mom to continue her legacy, because that was part of her funeral. In lieu of flowers, we passed out postcards, and on the back of that postcard, you had to do one act of kindness, write on the postcard what you did, and send it back. Wow. And I haven't looked at these. This is 2012 when my mom passed. I've never read these cards, but I just got them out as I was working through this mission statement, because I thought, what's most important to me is picking up where my mom left off. And most people saw her as the kind, but that's one of the fruits of the Spirit that I just talked about. If I can be a part of picking up that fruit that she dropped off and continue pushing that forward, that lights a fire inside of me every morning.
Wow.
And that's what I connect to.
So how do you live in the freedom of that without being in the shadow of that? Some people have, because of grief and because I think a wrong education in grief, we avoid, and actually one of my books that I'm writing is on grief, and one of the chapters is Avoid the Void. And it means, you got to be careful not to avoid the void, that place that they are no longer there. A lot of times we don't even want to talk about finance, or like my mom loved unicorns. And my mom was an artist, and it's easy to go, well, I'm just going to let my art gift die. Or I'm going to I don't want to see unicorns. They just remind me of my mom. Mm-hmm. And then also at the other side, you have some people who pick up the legacy, but they don't sense the freedom of it. Mm-hmm. I think it's really awesome. I feel like you have a healthy balance of, I've learned from my mom, I'm picking up the baton, but I'm doing it in my calling.
I have a phenomenal dad that picked up the slack whenever my mom passed. I'm extremely close with my dad, and I accredit a lot of that pull through and that perspective to him on what would your mom want us to do. Whenever she first passed, we lived in a house with 2 floors, and it was way too big of a house for just the 2 of us. I'm an only child. And we used to live only in the basement of that house. And because the upstairs was just too big, too much to take care of, and it's more than we needed, so we would just live in the basement. And there was a fireplace. In the wintertime, we'd turn the fireplace on. But I can remember specifically my dad saying, everybody is watching you right now. Everybody's watching us to see how we handle this whole thing.
Wow.
Are you going to make your mom proud, or are you going to make her disappointed? Everyone's watching you to see how you handle this whole thing. And that stuck with me to the point where I didn't even know why I was really doing what I was doing or working as hard as I was working until Symbis.
Wow.
Because we sat down.
And Symbis is a marriage ministry training that we do for couples at our church, Generations House of Worship. In order to officiate somebody's wedding, we want to make sure that they got adequate equipping prior. And so it's called Save Your Marriage Before It Starts. However, I believe if you check with the ministry, Symbis .com or something, .net. They attest that 40 to 50% of people who go through SYMBIS are actually married already. And so I like to call it save your marriage before it's sabotaged in that environment. Go ahead, please.
But we went through SYMBIS, and in SYMBIS, we went through a worksheet. My wife, Autumn, got a worksheet. I got a worksheet. We separated. We completed it separately without talking about it. On that worksheet, it had a list of chores that were to be done inside of the house. You remember this?
Yeah, I remember this.
I went through my list and I had every box checked. And my wife picked and chose what I was supposed to do, what she was supposed to do, but I checked them all. It was all on me. You're the one that helped me unpack this.
Yeah.
Matt, why do you feel like you need to do everything inside of the house? I grew up inside of a house where my dad did everything because my mom wasn't around.
Right.
And that was extremely eye-opening to me on how my past shaped who I am now. And I started connecting those dots on maybe I feel like I need to do everything. Maybe I'm staying so busy and working so hard at what I do because I never took time to backtrack and press rewind to figure out how to heal from my past moving forward. All I did is just replace it with a busy calendar. And replacing it with a busy calendar helped keep my mind off of it. And I was doing that from the time I was 12 up until the time I was 21. It's almost 10 years. Yeah. And it wasn't until SYMBIS that I unpacked that. So I think it's important to unpack your past. That's what I'm getting at. Extremely crucially important because it helps you understand who you are now so that you can take a 360 perspective on the way that you view your life to springboard off of your circumstances in the past and lean into the things that made you who you are today because you can use them for the better, not just for the worse. But I think the biggest thing would be your perspective and taking the perspective from the pit.
Yeah.
Is that one of your podcasts?
Yeah.
The pit. Yeah, I mean, we could look at things like the pit and there's going to be something nasty there. Yeah. And yeah, it freaking sucks. I lost my mom. It hurts. Mm-hmm. It still hurts. And I still have scars that are torn open on my heart from time to time. It's tough. But would my mom want me to chew on the pit that's hard and breaks teeth and reminisce on the past? Or would she want me to continue her legacy of kindness and focus on all of the good things that she instilled in me to move forward and make a difference and change the world the way that she was?
Plant the pit.
Plant the pit.
Plant the pit. And it's crazy because I think it might be apple seeds have arsenic in them, I believe, or some type of poison. So if you eat it, it'll hurt you. If you sow it, it'll bless you.
Wow. That's good.
And the people are afraid of that, though. They're afraid of failure. I'm afraid I'll fail. And I think that's probably two of the places this is what's crazy. I don't think this is the 20s issue. I don't think this is just teens issue. I think this is everybody. We have become so quickly enamored by the viral sensations and the like these people that get, hey, I did I'm not even talking about your construction people, but for instance, you got people who have construction businesses and they did a TikTok and now all of a sudden they have 13, 14 million people following them and now they're getting bids and they're crunch. And so we go, well, it worked for them. It should work for me. No, it worked for them. It could work for you.
Yeah.
Should and could are two different things.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what they did on the back end and how many no's and doors got shut and how many pits they had to chew on. Mm-hmm. We don't see that stuff. That's the process. Mm-hmm. That's the process, dude. Miles and miles. Like I'm sitting there the other day, my friend was moving out and he was just giving me stuff and giving someone else stuff and selling other stuff. And it just had me cracking up because I remember every time I moved, I gave everything away. There's two reasons. Number one, because I want to be a sower. And number two, I was too broke to take it with me. I'm not kidding, man. I was so broke. We were so broke. God kept me. I really believe God kept me at a minimum for a long time. And my wife and we're not ballers in any way. Not at all. You know, you see we're in my office right now surrounded by eBay stuff. Like I'm always trying to figure out how to help my wife and I get ahead and go further. Right. Yeah. But that being said, I believe that there was a lot of time where God kept me on the edge so that I would always know that he was the one who provides. And he is. And I love that you are kingdom minded, not career minded. You're career smart, kingdom minded. I love that. And I think that it's awesome at 24 that other young people could be watching this going, wow, like there's something in my life. I'm not going to run away from the pain. I'm not going to run, and don't run away from the gifts. So that's one reason why I love volunteering. And in middle school, I remember I volunteered at the hospital for something. I remember volunteering and shoveling. I was a heathen child, but for some reason, I found it fascinating to go shovel other people's sidewalks when it snowed. I wanted to serve. There was a leaking in me to help people. Even when I was a thief and a liar and a cheat, I was a terrible person. And then as I became a Christian, I started volunteering at the Christian bookstore. I vacuumed the floors. I put stuff away. So then they were like, well, if you're going to be here, we'll teach you how to do inventory. I started doing inventory at 15, 16 years old, bringing stuff in, putting stuff out, boxing, taping stuff, doing receivings, I started learning how to run the register, but they said, we can't hire you. They couldn't hire you. You had to be 17 to work at the Christian bookstore. I worked at the Christian bookstore for free for over a year and a half before I ever got a job there. Most people would never see. We've lost that. We forget that serving opens up wisdom. Serving opens up relationships. Serving opens up doors. Serving opens up opportunities. But serving reveals your motive. Yeah. Hey, man, I'm just here to help it. I want to make a difference. And so those are ways that I discovered my purposes. I was able to go travel around the nation with my youth pastor and a team of us. We would go preach and share our testimonies. Why did he take me? Because he couldn't get rid of me. I'm not lying. Couldn't get rid of me. He's like, God, every time I turn around, this annoying kid is there. And I'm like, yeah, man, because I'm falling in love with where God is calling me.
Yeah.
Because I love him first, I can hear his voice. I hear his voice. Now I can see where he's taking me. Now I know I have somewhere to go. Then all of a sudden I was in Bible college and I would go in the middle of the night and I would do other people's chores and get it signed off. They wouldn't even know who did it. I was like, God, that's how you bless me. You do things. I don't even know how you did it.
Yeah.
And so I think that part of discovering purpose, and I think part of really arriving and getting to that place at 22, 23, 24, I think you could be 24 and know what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
And I think you can be proud of it. And I think if you do it well enough, you can do many things with your life.
Yeah.
Because where you're going is you and your wife are going to be set up that you can go, hey, you want to do a completely crazy thing and try something new?
Yeah.
And she has the freedom to do that. I love that too.
Yeah.
So how would you, what would you tell? Because I think we're running out of time. We're almost at the hour mark. What's that time marker say? 57? It's right in front of you. Look down. What's that say?
58.
Ooh, 58. We're going to hit an hour, baby. So why don't you take about 30, 60 seconds and just encourage every listener on how to take a next step into kind of all of the things we talked about. Grief. We talked about dreams, visions, plans, hearing God. Give us something. Next steps, baby. Which is where he serves at our church, by the way.
I don't think it's about a leap. I think it's about a step. I believe that there is revelation and freedom found in surrender. Not surrender waving a red or waving a white flag. Rather, surrender through humility. I give up. I don't have to figure this whole thing out on my own. I can submit to the number one on my list and let him prepare the way. I don't have to figure it out on my own. And I believe that there is truth sought out through the Bible, supplication, prayer, and focus on what's really important. Because if you try to figure God out and your purpose out from the outside looking in, it's going to be tough. Versus if you throw yourself on the inside and let God figure you out, it's inevitable that you'll find a next step moving forward because that's inside of each and every one of us. It just hasn't been exposed to everyone yet.
I love it. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate you jumping on. Life, Hope, and Leadership. We're going to have you back so we can coach people on taking some next steps financially and getting into a provisionary state instead of a desperation state. Who cares about changing economies when we have wisdom and we have God involved? So we're going to talk about that in a future episode. But this is the first interview episode on Life, Hope, and Leadership. And I'm not really sure how we're going to be putting these out yet, but I'm really excited for the longer episodes and for different people. So if you're enjoying these, make sure you share, make sure you comment, let us know where you're watching from. And do people you want people to get a hold of you? Or are you just like, whatever?
Whatever.
Okay, whatever. We love you guys. Thank you so much. Means the world to me that you make this podcast a part of your daily life. Change your world this week.
You are listening to the Life, Hope, and Leadership podcast with Nick Chybrzynski, a transparent, honest, and encouraging podcast to equip you through real life experiences.